I guess going back about 8 or 9 years now, at the Adult Ed program, we have been very involved in practical research, applied research, to help evaluate what we're doing, to help measure new practices that we're trying to promote and stimulate, to try to improve our outcomes with what's happening with our learners. So we've done a number of things. This is one of our latest studies that is just about to be published. It will be co-published with Human Resource and Skills Development Canada in tentatively November. That's beyond my control when it comes out. It has been translated. We're in the final touches of what they do with graphics and things like that with it. So you're privy to some research that hasn't yet come out, but when it does come out, it'll be posted. The entire report will be posted to the HRSDC website. So we're going to talk about evidence for developmental learning trajectories, island prosperity, back to basics. And as we go along, I'm going to try to give you a bit about our story on Prince Edward Island. I had an opportunity to sit with Anne-Marie at breakfast this morning, just happened to sit down at the same table, and she started to say, well, gee, it's different there. You have some things that we don't have. And I forget that, being on Prince Edward Island, I forget that we're unique too. So I'll try to inject that as we go along so that you recognize where the differences are. There's some other things I'm responsible for beside adult education in Holland College. Learner supports is curriculum development, instructional development, library systems, e-learning, and the applied research, again, the research profile at the college, which is not just about teaching and learning, it's about social innovation, food product development. There's a whole spectrum there, but just to give you that. And if you ask me about food product development, I'm not an expert on the research, just on how to eat. So, okay. But we do some neat stuff there too. This particular study was funded with support of Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, which is a business development regional activity. I'm not sure what the equivalent is in Ontario, but ACOA is very much into social development and economic development. HRSDC, Human Resource and Skills Development Canada, my own institution, Holland College, and the PEI, Department of Innovation and Advanced Learning. So that was the partnership in order to do this study. So the Institute, and here's where we actually will talk about some of the differences. The Institute is the primary provider for adult learning and upgrading on Prince Edward Island. And we are actually the only provincially standardized adult education system in Canada. And I just take that for granted. So I'm always, when I find about some of the things Anne-Marie and I were talking about this morning, I take for granted that we have transcripts that we can show what a student does and move them on through the system. And that's not something that everybody has. So, yay, PEI. But one of the things that's really important at the college is that we support the island's prosperity strategy by assisting in labor force development. One of the mandates of any college, whether it's here in Ontario, whether it's in Prince Edward Island, whether it's out in BC, the mandate is for labor force development in the province that you're in. So this is something that's very real to us and something we work with every day. So what we want to do is support the training and the education of all parties so that we will have that economic diversification for the island and increase support for knowledge-based industries. And just a little bit of information around Prince Edward Island. We're traditionally a resource-based economy, fishing and farming. That's basically how we've evolved. Our government strategy right now is to diversify from that. I mean, we still support those industries. Those are very, very important. But we're moving into aerospace and bioscience. And actually, I would say we've moved because you'd be amazed how many companies have moved to Prince Edward Island and are getting started in those industries. So that's moving into the knowledge-based economy. Well, the knowledge-based economy requires a workforce that can support a knowledge-based economy and function in that manner. So this will be, you'll see as we go along, this was the crux of our study. So if we have a workforce that's changing and the demand is changing, what are the labor force development needs to meet new industry demands? What is the gap between labor force demand and supply for Prince Edward Island? and what support for adult education is necessary to promote transition to post-secondary education. This study, in the partnership that we were in, involved myself as co-principal investigator, along with Dr. Greg McKenna, who's my partner researcher in Prince Edward Island. And our researchers in HRSDC are all economists. And I'm not sure, have any of you here ever worked with economists? I see a nodding head back there. Okay, you get a lanyard too. It's not for the faint of heart, is it? They view the world very differently. And their world is about supply and demand, whereas an educator, I don't think about supply and demand. I've learned to think that way because the policymakers base their decisions on the information the economists give them. So I've learned to talk like an economist if I have to, so I can make my points more effectively. So let's take a look at our supply in Prince Edward Island versus the demand. We have a workforce aged 25 to 65, which is probably the smallest workforce in the country. You know, we're not talking a lot of people, about 60,000. 17% have a university diploma, 24% have a college diploma, 17% would be in the trades, 42% have a high school diploma, and 18% do not have a high school diploma. Now this is age 25 to 65. Keep that in mind because I'll throw a few statistics later. If you include the 18 to 25-year-old in there, that 18% jumps to 25%. Okay. Now, the demand, on the demand side, the new areas, bioscience, the jobs that are anticipated to be created by 2014 are 1,250 in bioscience, 800 in IT, 500 in aerospace, and we're faced with a net out-migration, because people are leaving the province faster than they're coming to it, of minus 600, which means in net, we have 2,500 potential openings in jobs with a labor force that only has about 42% with post-secondary credentials that could meet that labor market demand. So we have a bit of a situation. So this study primarily was to identify the evidence to increase effectiveness of adult education, because we not only have to do more, we have to do it more effectively. We wanted to estimate the cost of learning gain to define an increased return on investment. And again, we're talking like economists here. It's all about return on investment. We have to determine adult learners' labor market returns. So you'll find, I'll present some things in the study where we've really made some inroads around labor market returns. And we also want to determine future demand for post-secondary education, because that's critical. Not only do we want to have these people have a high school diploma, but we want to see them transition to the workforce. A high school diploma is not enough in this day and age. So in order to stay employed, they have to do more than that, and especially in the knowledge-based industries. The key research questions, I'm just going to go through these quickly and try and explain what they mean for those of you that don't like the format of research questions, because they get a little dry. What are the socio-demographic characteristics positively linked to performance and learning gains in our program? So in other words, what were the gender, the income, how was that related to how they did, or was it related? What are the adult training factors positively related to adult learning gains? So in other words, what was it that we were doing that were good indicators of success? What was the actual cost of the gain? And how did that relate to learner and program characteristics? Did the employment and earning outcomes of learners before and after participation in adult training, did the employment and earnings improve? Sorry, there's a word missing there. After participation in adult training. And how did learner attitudes and aspirations affect performance about education at time of leaving? So you can see there was an awful lot of data here. And actually, Greg and I can go back in and we could do an awful lot more mining. This is very rich information. So let me show you what our population was. We have night programs and day programs. In the night programs, we had, now I'll take a step back here, and again I'll do some explanations about our programs. We offer, in our adult programs, we offer credits, which are high school credits, and they're an exact mirror of the public school system. So they're considered equivalent. So if you took a Chemistry 621 in grade 12 at Bluefield High School, If you took a Chemistry 621 at Adult Ed, the curriculum is the same. The standards are the same. My instructors have to have a B.Ed, they have to have a licensed teaching certificate on Prince Edward Island. For those that aren't doing a high school credit, we also have GED programming, General Educational Development. And we do have a high percentage, as I already said, of people in the province that don't have a high school diploma, so the GED is a very important vehicle for these people. And then we have what we call levels. And levels are those people, when they come through the door, their foundation skills in literacy are not strong enough to warrant placing them in a GED program. Now you'll notice our numbers in the levels are low. And I would love to see those numbers come up. We aren't doing a good enough job of getting the people at the lower ends of the scale in through to our programs. Really good job of people that are in maybe high-end level 1, level 2 in the IELTS scale, but we're not doing a good job of getting the low end. So we had a total in the night programs of 155 participants in the program. In the day programs, we had a total of 326 for a total of 481. Not huge numbers, but certainly important numbers as a trial balloon to find out what we can do. It was a quasi-experimental design, which means we tested and measured. And there was 2 urban sites and 7 rural sites, so we did the entire province. And as I said, it's a standardized delivery system, so we had the whole province included in this. We had 3 program groups, the high school credits, GED, and levels. And the outcomes we measured, the overarching high-end outcomes, was did they complete the program of study? That was number 1. Did they get what they came in to get? Then we also measured their learning gain based on where they were at when they came in to where they were at when they left. And then we used our budget analysis to do what was the actual cost. And I've got a couple of different ways that's broken down. These are the measurements. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them, but I just wanted to show you where they fit. When people walk through the door, we did what we call baseline. We did the Canadian Literacy Evaluation with them, which is the standardized test as part of IELTS. We did GED practice tests with GED and levels learners, not necessarily with the credit learners, but with GED and levels. And we surveyed them. And we talked about we asked them about their attitude towards learning, their employment history, their literacy at work. We actually asked about their literacy at home as well. We asked about their activities outside of work and school, what were their hobbies, what were their interests. We asked about activity limitations. So it could be physical, could be visual, those kinds of things. We asked about their education and training history. We asked about their family background. What was the highest level of education of your mom, of your dad, of your siblings? And we asked about computer use. How much do you use it? When do you use it? What do you use it for? When they were done their intervention, and the intervention was whatever they took, whether it was a GED program, whether it was a credit, whether it was a levels program, when they were finished, and we have a continuous intake, continuous exit model, so the length of time varied depending on what the person needed to get. But when they were finished, we measured everything again except family background and computer use. I mean, the family background obviously wouldn't change. The computer use would have increased simply because they were there, so it really wasn't an appropriate measure to do at the post-intervention. And then we followed them 6 months after they left us. And we brought them back in. We did the literacy evaluation again. If they had done the GED, we had made arrangements with the provincial secretariat and had followed the disclosure rules around privacy, and we had the students' permission to get their final GED exam marks. And so we had those as a follow-up. Plus, if they did a credit with us, we had the final mark. So we had all that information. However, we did not do the survey again. And hindsight being 2020, boy, we wished we had done the survey at the 6-month follow-up, because some of the things we found out were so interesting at the post-intervention. But when we had designed the survey, we were looking for other things, and we hadn't realized what might come out of these. Research is an inexact science. So let's look at the population, breaking it down by gender, age, diploma, and whether they were night students or day students. Now, our gender balance, I went back through 5 years of our statistics, and that was pretty well the way it usually is. We have more females than males. And I'm not sure about your literacy programs. Do you tend to see that? That's what we tend to get. And so that was typical, the gender balance.